In this lesson, we'll get an introduction to splines and how to manipulate them to create 3D geometry. So before we begin, I want to explain what a spline actually is, and a spline is essentially a 2D shape that is inside of 3D space. So with that said, let's go ahead and build a spline and then learn how we can manipulate it, and then finally end with creating 3D geometry from that 2D spline. Now what I want to do is I want to work in my front view. It's really important to work in the front, top, or left viewports whenever trying to draw splines. We can get some really odd results if we work in the perspective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my front view, and I'm going to maximize this just so we have some room to look at this. And we're going to go to our Create panel. And here we've been working with geometry, but with splines we want to work with shapes. Now you'll see that we have splines here, and we're going to work with a line. Now we could go ahead and work with any of these shapes here, these predetermined shapes, but what we would have to do is go ahead and edit those splines or these shapes to get a shape that we're looking for. So I find it really easy to just go ahead and start out with a line, especially if it's a custom shape. So we're going to use line, and the first method that I'm going to show you with this is just how to create a shape very quickly, and then we'll go back and edit that shape. So I'm just going to click points, and you'll notice that vertices are being dropped down wherever I'm clicking, and we're just going to create a heart shape here. And you'll notice that we have these very jagged edges on this heart. So what we can do at this point is go ahead and edit these curves or edit the vertex types and change the curves of the line. Now whenever I clicked on this first vertex here, you'll notice that this pop-up comes up and it says, do you want to close the spline? And we want to hit yes on this, simply because we want this line to be continuous. So we're going to be merging those two vertices into one at that point. Now you'll notice that we have this little crosshair up here, and this is letting me know that I'm still in the draw line mode here. And you can see it highlighted over here as well. Normally whenever we draw a line and we're ready to finish, we're just going to right click and that will turn that off, so that way we won't draw any new lines. Alright, so now we've got this drawn out, and we want to go ahead and smooth this heart out here. So let's go to our modify panel, and you'll see that we have a line in our modifier stack. And we can go ahead and expand this, and you'll see vertex, segment, and spline. Now remember, you could also use these options in our selection rollout as well. These will do the exact same thing. Now we're going to be working with vertices here, so we're going to go to vertex mode, and I'm just going to select around each vertex, and I'm going to turn on my move tool. Now I can move these vertices around independently if I need to, just to kind of reshape this a little bit. You don't really have to do this at this point. Now, once I've got this shaped up to a base shape that I like, I'm going to go ahead and edit these vertices. So let's select them, and we're going to right click, and in this section of our menu, we'll see that we have Bezier corner, which you'll notice is selected, and then we have smooth. Now, these have different characteristics, so let's go ahead and choose Bezier corner and discuss that. Now, a Bezier corner vertex will give you these handles on each side of the vertex. And we can actually adjust these handles to reshape our line. Now, you'll notice that I can move this handle in any direction right now. You may come up across a situation to where you can only move up and down, and it's not letting you move left and right. And the reason that is because of our move tool. Right now you'll notice that the Y and the X are highlighted in yellow, so they are being constrained to the X and Y direction. So if you have just the X highlighted in yellow, that means that you can't move up and down. In the Y, you can only move left and right. And same thing with Y. If that's highlighted in yellow only, that means that you can only move up and down. So what I like to do is just click on this box here, highlight both directions, and then while I'm here, I'm just going to hit X, and that will keep me from switching my directions. And if you want your move tool turned back on, you just hit X again. Okay? So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and adjust these handles, and you'll notice that this is adjusting our line here. So we're going to be using this technique to trace out our bike shape that we have later on in this project. So let's go ahead and right click on this next vertex and let's discuss what Bezier is. Now you'll notice that we have these handles that is very similar to Bezier corner, but one thing that you'll notice is that whenever you drag these handles, they are locked together, and whenever you move them, it moves each one in an opposite direction. Okay, so you could really use this Bezier vertex type to get some really smooth lines while still needing with the ability to edit that line. Okay, so let's move to this next one and let's discuss smooth. Now this is on corner right now. We're going to come to this here in just a second. So let's go to smooth, and you'll notice that it smooths that line out, but we don't have those handles anymore. Okay, so smooth will smooth it out, but it won't give you any control over the lines themselves. Now what we can control is moving the vertex itself, okay, and that will adjust the line accordingly. Okay, now let's go to this next one, and we're going to right click on it, and we're on corner, and we're just going to keep it at corner. Now what a corner vertex does is you'll notice it's very much like smooth as far as there's no handles, so we can't really control the lines that are coming out from here. But they are very, very straight, so with corner you'll get some straight lines coming off that vertex. So we're going to go ahead and switch this one over to smooth, just like we did with this one. And then with this one we'll convert that over to Bezier, and you'll see that we can adjust that handle accordingly. And if we need to move this vertex to kind of reshape that, we can do that. So here we've discussed all of the different vertex types and how we can control and edit our lines here. Now we've just created a 2D shape here. So let's go ahead and go to our perspective view because I want to show you something really important. This is just a 2D line in 3D space. So if we render this, nothing will show up in our renderer. That's because 2D lines do not render in 3D space. Okay, so how do we make this important to us throughout this project? If the 2D lines are not going to render, then what's the point? Well, what we have to do is actually apply a modifier that makes this object 3D. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my shape here, make sure it's selected, and I'm going to go to my modifier list, and I'm going to scroll down to extrude. Now there are many that we could choose from, but we're just going to deal with extrude right now. Now you'll notice that nothing has really changed, and that's because we're still in just wireframe. So what I'm going to do is hit F3 on my keyboard, and that will turn on my shaded faces here. And you'll notice that this is now a 3D object, but it doesn't actually have any depth. So the extrude amount over here on our parameters will give us some depth here. Alright, so in this lesson we've discussed 2D splines and how we can convert them over to 3D geometry to work with us throughout our project. Now in the next lesson we're going to get right into our project and start setting up our image planes for our reference.